those players. But the Pittsburgh Steelers staff skipped the Michigan Pro Day. That's a big deal. They all skipped it to stay home and interview Aaron Rodgers and try to talk him into becoming a Steeler. And he went, and he interviewed, and he left, and there's no contract. So, and I'll say this. If you do not take quarterback seriously, like Pete Carroll in Seattle, Geno's good enough. Not really with that roster, he's not. Sam Howell's good enough. Ron Rivera, not really. Mason Rudolph, good enough. Not really. This is Pittsburgh's fault. And by the way, I really do wonder what Aaron's thinking, because the Steelers' offensive line was bad, and then they lost their left tackle. And Najee Harris, who came out this weekend and said, yeah, Pittsburgh's offense, it's frustrating. There's no identity. They also lead the league again in defensive spending. And they spent $150 million on DK Metcalf, so they have two needy, combustible wide receivers who sort of have the same game, both want the ball, and they have no quarterback. So I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking to myself over the weekend, there's a reason Aaron Rodgers was waiting and waiting. He wanted Minnesota, excellent offensive coach, superstar wide receiver who doesn't complain much, upgraded their offensive line very well in free agency. Aaron wanted to go to Minnesota. Knew the division, closer to Malibu, closer to home. He wanted to go to Minnesota. And what he's doing, he's treating the Steelers like they need him more than he needs them, and Aaron Rodgers is right. I looked it up this morning. Even with California taxes, he's got a net worth probably of $300 million, first ballot Hall of Famer, 41-year-old guy with a lot of interests. I've said this before. Minnesota, I would have stuck around for. Giants was interesting because of the coach and left tackle and weapon. I think Pittsburgh is fool's gold for a quarterback. Go ask Russell Wilson. It was a mess by the end of the year. Go ask Mason Rudolph, old Big Ben. It's fool's gold. The Steelers are 29th in touchdown passes with a variety of quarterbacks since 2021. How about this? That's fewer than the Patriots, the Raiders, and the Bears. I mean, come on now. We're getting into Carolina categories. So I think Aaron Rodgers, if he signs anywhere, it will be Pittsburgh. But I think there's a reason people wait to take a job offer, because they have questions. It could be my kids. It could be your kids. It could be you. It could be Aaron Rodgers. He's sitting around. He's like, their offensive line's a mess, and they may have just lost their best offensive lineman and their best running back. And I met with a coordinator. He's fine, not special. It's a defensive culture, tone-deaf offense, and two wide receivers that are talented, but both want the ball, and both have proven to be combustible.
Yeah. I want to take this in a couple different directions. First and foremost, I want to ask, does anyone really care right now about this story with Aaron Rodgers that much? One of the ways how I try to, the frame of reference that I try to take when I make videos for this channel is, I'm kind of like, if I find something interesting, then I believe other people will find it interesting. If I find something not that interesting, then I believe that other people don't really find it that interesting. And it's not because I think like I am the man who knows everything. It's more like I think of myself as the exact type of fan that the NFL, would love, because I love all of football, right? Like I I love all the storylines. I love to watch all the games, all the teams. I'm into it all, right? The NFL would love to have as many fans like me in that regard, just because, the ratings would be through the roof, although they don't want people like me in the stands because that would be a lot more boring. And so a story like this, I think to myself, I just don't care. And how many people really care? And for the life of me, this is something that Colin has covered nonstop, and First Things First, and I assume ESPN and everywhere. And for the life of me, I don't really get it, because even when I make Aaron Rodgers videos, people barely even watch them. So I don't even get this constant, like, they're covering Aaron Rodgers like this is LeBron James and is like, is he going to go to Cleveland? Is he going to stay in Cleveland? Is he going to go to LA? What's he going to do? Like, it's, oh my God, I heard he had a meeting with Magic Johnson in a parking lot in a car. It's like, oh, that's weird. And I just like does it even matter? And that's what I like. I don't know. I've been sick this whole weekend and before that. And I'm like, all right, I know I have to kind of like get back in the swing of things. And I'm like, all right, and I'm excited. I'm like, all right, the herd, let's see what's going to be on. And the first football story is like Aaron Rodgers. And I'm like, who cares? Seriously, who cares? And then we're trying to like figure out, this is what Aaron's trying to figure out. And, Aaron's thinking like this. And I'm like, I don't feel like trying to figure out what Aaron Rodgers is up to because, again, I don't care. And honestly, my guess is that you don't care either. That's my guess. Because at first I had to be like, all right, do I even make a video about this? Because I've been skipping a lot of Aaron Rodgers. And some of these stories were interesting. When you were talking about will they go to Minnesota Vikings, I'm like, okay, this is interesting because I think there's a lot at stake in Minnesota because of everything that they're doing. And then they drafted this quarterback. That storyline I find interesting because that's actually like an interesting storyline. But like Aaron Rodgers maybe going to the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm like, who cares? Seriously, I'm like, who cares? And I think that the Steelers would be kind of decent with Aaron. It's like, I don't even think that they would be bad necessarily. I'm on the record saying it's hard for me to really evaluate what Aaron Rodgers will look like. I think he could still have a lot of life into him, but like, whether or not the Pittsburgh Steelers can actually support that is another thing. But I don't know. It's just kind of absurd. Now we're like, oh, he's worth $300 million, and he wanted to go to Minnesota because it's closer to Malibu. Bro, the dude's riding on private jets. It's the difference between a 5-minute plane ride and not. Like, I think he's okay. I think it doesn't really matter if he's in Minnesota or Pittsburgh. Like, that's, come on. I don't even understand that. And, Pittsburgh's closer to Paris, okay? So, like, I just doesn't even matter. I don't know. It's just not something that fully interests me personally. And then I still wonder, do Steelers fans want Aaron Rodgers? Do they? And I've been pleading with them to prioritize their offense. Because my whole thing with Aaron Rodgers is like, what's your plan with Aaron if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers? What's your plan? If you got Aaron Rodgers, like, do you think you have a Super Bowl ready roster right now? Because if not, then what's the point of bringing in Aaron? What does it do? Makes you like, I don't know, kind of win some games, kind of lose some games. Like, how does it get you going in a more positive direction? How do you take a step forward? And if you're not taking a step forward, then there's no point in bringing in Aaron Rodgers. Like, what does it actually do? Now, if you think you're an Aaron Rodgers away from actually like competing, well, then that's fine. But then I feel as though you would be making different moves. And maybe you could say, well, hey, we went out and got DK Metcalf, etc. But it's like, yeah, I guess I feel like there would still be more missing. And this is tough because, again, you got to see the draft. Like, I don't know. Honestly, it just feels like a weird thing. And I heard reports that apparently Aaron is still holding out for Minnesota. And then there's still rumors that he could still sign with Minnesota, that it's still kind of like a wait and see type of thing. But like, I have zero desire to be like, oh, what's Aaron going to do? Oh, what's he going to do? Did you hear what Aaron said? Did you hear about that meeting? And what's going to be annoying is because by the time you're watching this, maybe First Things First has already been, is on air. Because like, that's what they're going to talk about. Nick's going to be like, this is classic Aaron Rodgers. This is what I said about Aaron Rodgers. If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm like, I don't care. Let's talk about anything. Talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. Talk about is Patrick Mahomes the GOAT for the 10,000th time again. I'd rather talk about that. Should Travis Kelce retire? Sure, let's talk about that. What will Travis Kelce's and Taylor Swift's children look like? I'd rather have a conversation about that, man. Because I just don't care. Well, I don't let's talk about JJ McCarthy. Let's talk about what it'll be like for JJ to be the quarterback after missing a year before he's ever even played in the NFL yet. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the differences between sitting for a year and being healthy compared to being injured and sitting for a year. Let's talk about that. What does that do for a young 21, 22-year-old? You know? Let's talk about the stakes. Heck, I'd rather talk about the stakes for Jameis Winston in New York. Let's talk about that. You know, is there still a career to be salvaged? You know, like, I don't know. How can Bo Nix progress? Anything. What does Jalen Hurts have left to prove? You know, Super Bowl and winning MVP. But like, this. Told you it wasn't feel well. I don't know. I'm about to go on a coughing fit. It's gonna be a long day. Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna have to just end it here. Trying to, you know, not gross it up. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. Let me know yours in the comments below. Please don't forget to subscribe. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Let me know what you guys are all thinking. See you next time.